Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call the order the Pennsylvania County Board of Supervisors joint meeting with IDA Tuesday, November 19, 2024 at 2:03 p.m. Board meeting room at 39 Bank Street, Chatham, Virginia. Ms. McCluster, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Dudley.
Present.
Mr. Height.
Here.
Mr. Ingram.
Here.
Mr. Whittle.
Here.
Mr. Tucker.
Here.
Mr. Dalton.
Here. Ms. Saunders, would you call your roll, please?
Dr. Fawcett, Mr. Daniel, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Knuckles, Mr. Merricks, Mr. Minter, Mr. Atkins.
All right. Thank you. Moving to item 3. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? Not hearing any, we move to item 4. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tucker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dudley. Any further discussion? If none, we're ready to vote. All right, motion carries unanimous. Moving to item 5. Mr. Merrick's just come in. Y'all need to make a note for.
Yep, we'll note it.
Okay, all right. Moving to item 5, new business. It's going to be Matt Rowe, either Mr. Joey Fawcett. Or we'll take both of you. Okay, both of you. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, board members, IDA members. I'm going to do a quick presentation here for you. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Good. Try to get through this without coughing.
Get them really, to increase your volume just a little bit if you don't mind, in the back. Y'all will. Okay.
You on, they just went to up it there.
Is that okay?
Can you put up something, Josh?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, sorry. I'm going to do the best I can for you guys. Up in the front, okay. So we're going to do a presentation. In this presentation here, we're going to hit the agenda items that you have in front of you in that kind of order. There's a method behind the madness, I promise. What was directed of staff from the Industrial Development Authority was to hold a joint meeting, which is of course what this represents. This is something that the IDA frankly has been asking for several years, and I think the IDA really wants to point out Mr. Vincent Shorter's efforts in making this happen. So Vincent, on behalf of the IDA, thank you very much for doing this. And the timing of this really couldn't be better at this point in time given what's going on in our community. So just a really high overview of what is economic development. From a academia standpoint, you can just write books about economic development, but really it just boils down to business retention, expansion, and attraction. And I always try to simplify it even further in saying that we, in essence, solve business problems. And so that's what we do in economic development, right? Somebody has either a order, right? So demand, and which means they have to increase supply, which means, of course, then that they have to find a new site or expand, so on and so forth. And so again, for a business, that's a problem. Likewise, when somebody does a downsize, something's changed in the economy, something in their business model has fallen apart, they've lost an order, whatever that may look like, and trying to work with companies on trying to find ways to lessen the impacts of those downsizes. Okay. We have become pretty mature in understanding our target sectors. We fill out requests for information from companies all day, every day. And so it's not a matter of where we're saying we think that this is a target sector. The actual validation is coming from companies themselves and frankly the announcements that you're having. So again, target sectors, advanced materials. Think of Intertape Polymer Group as being a form of advanced material. Additive and subtractive precision machining. So of course everything that's going on with the Haas Center, the Harlow Fast Tech project, that's all that CNC machining. Automotive and EV battery. Just had a small announcement last week that people might have heard of in the EV and automotive space. Electronics and semiconductor, certainly EIT comes to mind, and the Zollner acquisition and growth of that company. And of course they're doing medical devices in addition to automotive devices. Of course we're getting inundated by data storage, and we'll have a whole conversation about data storage. And then food and beverage, AeroFarms, Tyson Foods, great examples of recent wins. Value-added agriculture, wood products and life sciences. Agriculture is still the county's #1 industry. And what the board tasked me when I was first hired was find ways for us to get value add to our agriculture. So let's just take, for example, the Speyside stave mill project, Speyside Bourbon Barrel Cooperage, which is taking up the rest of Brownsville Industrial Park. Currently, our white oak, for example, we have a large stand of white oak in Pittsylvania County, hence the name White Oak Mountain, is currently being cut and is going somewhere to another community to be processed into a higher value product. So yes, the landowner may be getting, quote unquote, the value of that oak, but we're not getting the full value of the process chain. And so by having Speyside making the staves that ultimately go into the barrels for bourbon and whiskey and scotch and you name it, it just again adds the process component, adding value into our community. So those process jobs, the truck drivers, the manufacturing jobs, the capital investment, so on and so forth. And then of course it also opens up additional markets for our landowners that own timberland. And then small business and entrepreneurship, making sure that we can do what we, to have vibrant main streets. And the mentality is that if you have a business climate that is friendly for a mega site client, it should also therefore be friendly for a small business or entrepreneur to prosper in your community as well. So since 2016, we've done pretty well for ourselves. We've had a capital investment now of over $2.5 billion worth of announced projects, over 7,000 jobs announced. Obviously a lot of attention is on last week, and so that's the local economic development team, and then the regional team. And then also here in the county, before the end of this year, we're expecting another 250 plus jobs and $60 million to be announced before the end of the year. And again, that's all going to be dependent upon governor schedules and you name it, but right now that's what's on track. So I want to get into the current status of industrial parks. I often hear and read, and I'm part of the community too, so I see everything that's going on. We drive past all these vacant industrial parks. There's plenty of land, so on and so forth. And so, again, I'm someone who prefers to use facts rather than opinion. And so we're going to go through each one of these industrial parks and give you real-world updated status on where these industrial parks are in their development patterns and opportunities within those industrial parks. So the Brownsville Industrial Park, with the recent Speyside Bourbon Barrel Cooperage announcement, there's no additional lots left in the park. So parcel 1 and 2 that you see here on the map, that is part of Speyside. The initial first phase that they announced, I think, was a little over 16 million and 40 jobs based upon their other facilities across the state and other states. It's certainly reasonable for us to expect them to probably grow to 80 to 100 jobs and probably to do another expansion of some sort of doubling that investment. And so again, as you can see there, that park is full. One of the first projects I worked on when I came here with the IDA was getting B&L construction into a vacant building in that site. And then Piedmont Pallet Corporation went into a vacant building into that site, and they're making pallets there. And so again, right now the total park investment probably stands roughly at about 20 million, and you have about 110 jobs or employees that will be in that park that have been announced. Ringgold West Industrial Park. This is a very high-performing park in the county. So, of course, its anchor tenant being Intertape Polymer Group, but you also have Precision Electronic Services, a company that a lot of people don't recognize, but Precision Electronic Services is extremely important to our community. They are doing all of the small motor control and fixing things that are in those motors that can break in a manufacturing environment. So, again, really important to have them. JTI is leasing space that was once the Dan Valley Foods, grocery store. Brock Supply, you have the Dan River Business Development Center, Continental Express, Talbot Building Supply. So all of that's in that park, and then you have this kind of appendage that goes around, and honestly that land that is the appendage is very difficult terrain-wise, and the IDA was actually able to get Invenergy to put that land under contract for future energy development. And so the IDA has a very lucrative contract in place with Invenergy, and Invenergy just notified us that they want to continue that contract, and so we're getting sizable contract payments for that. So the total park investment is over $400 million in that park, and then you have over 500 jobs. Again, there's no land available in that park. Everything's under a contract. Ringgold East Industrial Park. This is the park that is just to the east of Cane Creek. So with an upcoming announcement, we expect to be probably sometime in early December. There are no additional lots for development in this park. The total park investment, including the upcoming project, will be over $150 million, and the total park job creation, including the upcoming project, is 175 folks. And so, of course, you have Axor North America. Mr. Bowman was instrumental on that project back in 2013, bringing them to the community, and I've worked on an expansion with them as well. We recently just had an announcement for Technista in a building that the IDA owns, doing work for the Department of Defense as far as doing advanced manufacturing training. And then a project that will be upcoming here will be Project Cambridge. That'll be announced. Gretna Industrial Park. The park has land availability currently out there. And again, this is what I'm thinking about when I'm driving through sites and looking at things. I think you could probably put another 3 to 4 building pads out in this park, maybe 20 to 30,000 square foot buildings. So it's not going to be transformational stuff. Right, you're looking at some small machine shops, that kind of thing, which is fine. The park has limited water, sewer, and power access. You will never get, and I hate to use the word never, but it is highly unlikely that you will ever get natural gas to that site, which is a limiting factor. The park needs to have an existing road extended to access the potential additional pads. That's an immediate need. That's something the IDA is actively looking at. Again, that's something that we really need to work with Tobacco Commission and others on finding a solution for. The funds needed to continue development of the park, I'm estimating somewhere right around $5 million. That's including the roadway, infrastructure extension, and grading the small pad. So far, thus far, manufacturing-wise and job-wise, we've announced Tradesman Trucking and Amthor International for their tank mounting facility. And then, of course, the town has a solar facility that they've put on some of the land and a propane storage facility. But between Amthor and Tradesman Trucking, you're looking at over $40 million of direct investment and over 105 jobs that have been announced thus far. But you can see from this diagram here how we need to continue that roadway in there in order to get the rest of the lots. So this is traditionally how a industrial park develops from start, and that's, right, I'm following the model that I've done in all the other communities I've worked in, where you start at the front and you work your way back. So we've knocked that out. In order for us to, in order for me to show another site, I can't be driving over mud and take the risk of getting a high profile client stuck. We got to get a road in there to continue that development. Chatham Industrial Park, Eastern Panel Manufacturing. I'll tell a funny story, and this, Mr. Dalton will remember this one. So we had a 55,000 square foot building in that park. My Twin Industries was vacant, and of course CRB Electric has been in that park for some time, and so we were trying to make that building marketable. And this just kind of shows you the crazy stuff we deal with in my job. And so the first time I took a client through there, number one, the cobwebs were everywhere. The building hadn't been opened up in a long time. But when I was shining my light to try to show the space off, it was thousands of little eyes twinkling, looking back at me. And it was, when you got more light in there, what it was all of the old doll heads that were just everywhere. I mean, it was terrifying. And the prospect, we all had a good laugh at it. But that afternoon, when Daryl was an employee for the county, I called Daryl and I said, Daryl, I have another visit tomorrow. I said, is there any way that you guys could help us out in throwing away all of those doll heads? And Daryl, I don't know how many containers of doll heads you guys took out of that place.
A lot of dolls.
But needless to say, we showed it the next day, and the next person we showed it to actually was Keith Van Ash with Eastern Panel. And so they've since bought that, utilized that 55,000 square feet, and I think they've added on another roughly 20,000 square feet. So again, Daryl, thank you for that work. In that park, you're looking at right now about $15 million of investment and over 100 jobs in that park. So again, no land in that park. Tight Squeeze Industrial Park, older park here in the community. You have Arkema Soldermer, great corporation. Polyant Composites, Tight Squeeze Fab, Dadant & Sons, Times Fiber, and Times Fiber owns a lot of land there. You can see that's just kind of how their process is in there. Piedmont Farmers Cooperative, see Bill Knuckles here. And so in that park, you have one vacant 67,500 square foot warehouse right when you come into the park. It's extremely visible. It is an eyesore. It is what it is. It's in poor condition. We have approached that owner about trying to sell, and they don't want to sell. There's sentimental value there. And so again, they have secured the building code. And, again, it's private property. We currently don't have any land in the park available. We could certainly look at acquiring adjacent land since a lot of that utility infrastructure is there. But with that being said, there is limited water and sewer because the town of Chatham is the service provider. Ultimately, I mean, that's the source of where the water and sewer is coming from. And so again, that's just a limiting factor that you have taken into consideration. If you look at the total park investment in there, you're probably looking at about $150 million, and you're looking at about 200 jobs in that park. So again, as it stands today, there's just not a lot of opportunity in that park for us to do expansion work. Cane Creek Center. When you first come into the park, of course, building-wise, you have Valravn, which was announced, I think, in 2021, 2022, 2020, something like that. Morgan Olson, of course, with their facility. Tyson Foods, RBW Sports and Classics is the newest one. That's on what was Lot 1, the old U.S. Green Energies building. And, so they're rolling in there. We do have a 254,000 square foot building, which was the formerly LK facility. This is part of the community kind of taking that next step up in kind of the hierarchy of projects. And so, you will see some turnover on some of these buildings where, frankly, it's not probably the best idea to utilize a manufacturing building for distribution purposes in a community as advanced as what we're seeing in our manufacturing skill sets. So, I'm showing that building, Katie, we showed that building twice last week. So again, showing that building an awful lot. Realty Link, 100,000 square foot shell building. And again, that building is in the finals on multiple projects. We do have a 10-acre pad site, which is Lot 8A. And so again, that's an opportunity that's there. One thing that I'm really trying to push hard, probably with RIFA here coming up, is the ability to grade a 30-acre pad on Lot 10. So that's that lot right next to Tyson Foods. That would be a good lot. That's something I feel like we could move pretty quick. And then, ability to grade a 10-acre pads on both lots 11A and 11B. Again, 10-acre pads aren't going to have a high return on your investment. Probably cost about $1.5 million. And the ability to grade about a 15-acre pad on lot 12C, which again, you can kind of see where these items are here. Again, probably about $2.5 million. For that 30-acre pad, which is in Matt's kind of long-term wish list, you're probably looking at about a $5 to $6 million cost. And so again, that's something that, that's an opportunity that's there. In that park, we've probably looked at about $615 million of capital investment and over 1,200 jobs. And that number just, continues to climb. Jump into the Cyber Park. Again, these are regional parks now with our peers from the city. Of course, the main anchor is the Institute for Advanced Learning and Research. Then, of course, you also have the Accelerated Training in Defense Manufacturing, which is a long word, but it pretty much is the Department of Defense training program in there. So that's that new roughly $100 million facility now that the U.S. Navy is constructing next to the Center for Manufacturing Advancement, which is the CMA. A lot of acronyms in that park. They like acronyms. EIT, which was acquired by the German company Zollner. So we mentioned about the electronics. They're doing, I think, 80 new jobs and about $15 million of investment. Canadian Banknotes, CBN, Overfinch, and then, of course, we, the joint IDAs, the city IDA and the county IDA, we own a 30,000 square foot shell building that we're consistently showing. And then we also, the Regional Industrial Facility Authority owns a 15-acre graded pad site, and that site has actually already been selected, or is preferred location, I should say, for a project that would be announced in 2025, the end of 2025. So again, really, really highly sought after pad site. We have the ability to grade 3 additional, probably 10-acre pad sites, probably about $1.5 to $2 million each. Topography becomes a little bit of a challenge in there. Total park investment as it stands today, probably looking at about $200 million, and you're looking at roughly 350 jobs in that park. All right, jumping up to HURT, Southern Virginia Multimodal Park. Obviously, the first tenant is in that facility, Stanton River Plastics. I actually received a question from the newspaper as part of this announcement last week saying, what is the longest project you've ever worked on?
I guess you have.
And it's this one. I mean, it took us 3 years for us to recruit Stanton River Plastics, and they move at their own pace. But what I can tell you is that, Kim, we just got the actual investment number. Was it 27 million? Is that right? Yeah. So is that right? Yeah. Like I said, so our assessors went out there and assessed the property. They've invested over $27 million thus far, and their commitment was 34. So again, it might not be a lot that people can see from the street, but I don't see anybody walking away from $27 million that they've invested. So again, I mean, we hear the rumors just like everybody else. I think my favorite one was that the building was built not tall enough, but of course the company did a build to suit, so they built it for their use. So again, we hear the same kind of stuff, but they are rolling along and putting equipment in the building. We have the ability to grade a 50-acre pad up on top of the old distribution pad. Estimated cost of that's probably about $5.5 million. We also have the ability to grade a 15-acre pad next to the Stanton River Plastics building with rail access, so that's on the rest of that Klopman Mills manufacturing pad. That would be probably about $3 million. Again, this is a unique site. It's hard. It's really, really hard to market in the northern part of the county, so you got to start kind of really separating yourselves. And so maybe a way to separate yourself compared to maybe another site that you're competing against would be to have a 50,000 square foot shell building on that pad. And so again, right, you're probably looking at about $5 million for that kind of a shell building. The current liability or limitations on that site currently is it has limited potable water, so water that you can drink. It has all the water in the world that you can pull up and look at and cool things off with, but to actually put into your process, you're probably looking at somewhere right around 500,000 gallons, if that. And so again, the site also has limited access for sewer as well. So estimated cost to improve the water situation, again, a flat number, probably around $5 million. To do the sewer, you're probably looking at somewhere around $10 million. And that's mainly doing improvements on the Alta Vista side. Also, the site does not have natural gas. I would say out of all of the impediments right now, the one that is the most difficult is probably natural gas. And I'm not saying, and I never recommend anybody to build a natural gas line into a site proactively, because the very time you do that, that's when the client that you bring in won't use natural gas. But if nothing else, maybe try to work with the gas company to pay engineering fees and to get the right of way and whatnot to try to reduce the timeline so it won't kick you out from a project, that when somebody says, hey, I got to have a definite guarantee on natural gas here in 16 to 18 months. So again, that's a way of kind of being able to tiptoe into that situation. For Matt, when I go home at night thinking about HURT, what I think about of I would view success of that park being is probably about $250 million of investment and about 500 jobs. I think that that's a reasonable expectation over time if you're selective, looking at that particular site. And we do have a couple projects that, would certainly help us kind of jump those numbers up there further. All right, and then we get to the Southern Virginia mega site, just on a totally different level. Obviously, what I would just say about the mega site has been beneficial for this community, not only because of the direct jobs that it is going to create and again, just what's happening out there. It's also forced us as a region to step up our game. And when I say step up our game, it's being able to understand how to market more effectively, just being able to control every situation of a visit, and really direct resources to plug holes that other communities oftentimes are overlooking because they're not getting the scrutiny that we are. And so that again has really helped us on a lot of these smaller, I call them smaller, but maybe mid-sized projects. So of course the first tenant out there on 212 acres, 2015 jobs, 1.35 billion of investment, Microports LLC, making battery separators for multiple clients, automotive, energy storage, pretty much of a battery, any battery, be it lithium ion, solid state, you name it, it's going to have a separator in it. So again, very, very, very good project. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Likely will hopefully be out there again in another 9 to 12 months. So again, we're seeing a lot of activity. The site's always a preferred site for many projects. So we have about 3,300 plus acres remaining. 1,700 acres are developable. Again, we're current finalists for multiple $1 billion plus projects that would utilize all or portions of the remaining park. Again, for me, when I look back saying, man, what would I view this park as being successful for? Would be looking at a capital investment of over $4 billion in the site and somewhere between 3,500 to 7,000 jobs, and that's over the next 10 to 15 years. I think that park can certainly meet those metrics based upon the activity we're seeing. Then one more to share with you. It's privately owned. It's Blair's Crossing. This is one that, again, we just are always trying to find, where do we go next? How do we, try to leverage some of our assets? What I will tell you is that the private market ultimately drives what happens. So, again, it only made sense that you need to focus in this area for distribution because that's the only part in the county where you have sole distribution buildings across the street. They saw something there. And so sure enough, when you actually run the logistics models, it's a very favorable location. So 300 acres, single ownership. It's split zone currently, M2 and A1. It is within a state enterprise zone. Again, we've run a lot of logistics models. It's really strong, especially for companies that are looking at West Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina and Virginia as being your logistics base. This is probably the strongest site within probably about a 50-mile radius. We're right dead bullseye of any place that could serve that kind of a distributor. 15 to 20 megawatts of power. Site does not have natural gas. A lot of times these distribution buildings don't need it. So again, that's not typically a limiting factor, but if you wanted to try to convert this site over into a manufacturing use, you're running that natural gas line 14,500 linear feet to the site. It's going to be about $10 million. Realistic expectation for this site is to secure a large distribution facility with 300 plus jobs, $200 plus million of investment. And again, if you extend that natural gas line, you could probably open it up to manufacturing. So, site overview conclusion. Contrary to much public sentiment, our industrial parks in reality are almost full, except for the mega site, which again, we've been purposefully selective in that site. And I think you saw some of the, the rewards for that effort last week. The Brownsville, Ringgold West, Ringgold East, Chatham, and Tight Squeeze industrial parks, they're done. Remaining industrial parks have limited potential due to maximum pad sizes and the limited infrastructure. To fully maximize potential, the county or its partners must make significant investments in grading additional pads and extending or expanding infrastructure. And again, there's only 3 marketable manufacturing buildings, in my opinion, that can really provide revenue to the county. So looking forward, these are the questions I always think about when I should be sleeping. Do we take our foot off the gas and only focus on the immediate returns? And that's the 3 vacant buildings, the 10-acre pads in Cane Creek Center, maintaining selectivist for the transformative industry at the mega site, and marketing the remaining properties with noted limitations and weaknesses. There's no problem with marketing trees. I've did it in Charles City. You take somebody out there and you say, can you envision your project being here in this big old stand of pine trees? The problem is that when you're doing that against 9,000 other communities that have pine trees, it knocks you out pretty quick. So again, every kind of investment you make, it just simply allows you to be more competitive and allows you to get kind of further along in the funnel process. Do we invest in grading sites or making improvements in only regional industrial parks or regional partners? This is the cheapest way to do it. You got partners, they'll pay half of it for you. Of course, that only means you get half of the revenue coming back from it.
That's right.
But, proactively grade that 30-acre pad in Cane Creek Center or grade a pad at the multimodal park and find ways to reduce the timeline of extending gas to the Hurt site. Do we invest only in county opportunities or sites, right? Proactively grade a small pad in the Gretna Industrial Park for smaller industry or seek adjacent additional land, to your Ringgold East Industrial Park, or work with the private landowners of Blair's Crossing to extend natural gas to the site, proactively rezone it, right? Look for additional land for future industrial parks, and if so, where? So the cheapest way to do this, and I've started now industrial parks from scratch, I guess 5 times, is to either work with your partners, which is why we did that partnership for SR RIFA. We couldn't lift that alone. Or try to find and acquire land around your existing industrial parks because that's where the infrastructure already is. So you're not having to pay that massive millions of dollars of infrastructure. Instead, you're buying the land and you're going out and you're trying to grade it. If we were to look for additional land for future industrial parks, where should we put our focus? I would say that over 90% of economic development projects, activity, and inquiries occur from White Oak Mountain south down to the Carolina border. And this is due to several key facts. First and foremost, good, bad, or indifferent, the county and city, that's where they've put their investment for 40 plus years. So that's why you have the infrastructure down there, the graded sites, you name it. So again, infrastructure has been put there. Population density and housing. So when somebody's doing a request for information, every time they do that, they say, what's the housing density? What does the labor force look like? When you get up to Hurt, it starts getting really difficult because all you're pulling in at that point within a 45-mile radius, which is going to be your technician level, is going to be the city of Lynchburg. You're not getting typically Danville. It's just the northern side of Danville. And you're not getting Roanoke. You're getting Bedford. But the numbers typically come in at like 250,000. So again, it starts to restrict what you can go after. Logistics and proximity to the major North Carolina metros. And then, frankly, the partnership through RIFA has been driving that. Again, it's cheaper. Easiest and cheapest to acquire property again surrounding existing industrial parks. However, and this is something I always hear, I've been with the county now for 10 years. Thank you for allowing me to have my job here for 10 years. But I've always heard that there's this desire, this groundswell of we got to take what's happening in the southern part of the county and put it in the northern part of the county. If that's the case, we got to invest a lot of money because the reason why, again, it's happening in the southern part of the county is that's where you invested a lot of money so things are ready for business. And then I think the real question is that I've heard that from the board members, but I've sometimes seen some waffling from citizens on, do citizens really want an industrial economic development north of White Oak Mountain? Other than the sentimental Hurt property, do citizens want it? And that's a real question that has to be asked. So here's my synopsis. This is just me. The next 5 to 7 years, board, they're going to determine the county's future for the next 2 to 3 generations. You're already seeing that. The county and city, we are in an enviable position. We're in the process of accomplishing what typically takes 40 to 50 years in 15 to 20 years. The Greenville, South Carolina model, which is kind of the nation's top model, it took them about 40 to 50 years. People are coming here to see what we're doing because we're doing it in half the time. Now, will it all stand up and go as planned? I don't know. The story's still being written. It could totally collapse in like a deck of cards. But right now, again, it looks like that we're doing pretty well. Whether we like it or not, we will have to make extremely difficult and impactful decisions. There will be no right or wrong answers. It's just going to be, what is your vision? What is the citizens' vision for the county? Change will occur at a rapid pace. It's already underway. You can't stop it. Just, it's going to happen at this point in time. The county and city are attractive, and that's why you're being sought after by industry. So the question is, again, do you want to take full advantage of this enviable position? And some people may say, hey, I don't like this position, which is fine. Yet, right, we will need to invest and continue to invest in new sites. And then the key thing is, and I always kind of love this thought process, is people say, I want them to bring their money here and invest, and then I want everybody to go home after closing time. It doesn't happen that way. So economic development will not only bring industries, jobs, and investment, but it will also bring denser housing, new neighbors, increased traffic volumes, altered landscapes and sight lines, and, oh yeah, the population will become more diverse because the U.S. population as a whole is becoming more diverse. Change. It's going to be key. None of these elements occur within a vacuum. They are all interrelated. So again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but again, these are the things that I think about when I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? How does this end? Now, I have a 4-year-old. We do the Harry Potter thing. And maybe it's just because I have walking pneumonia and I'm not sleeping like I should, but the 2 words that must not be named, data centers, there, I said it. So again, if anybody are Harry Potter fans, you don't say the word Lord Voldemort. So again, in this case, you don't say data centers. Let's jump into it. Why are data centers coming to Pittsylvania County? The county has several favorable factors and value propositions. Whether you're pro or con data centers is just facts. And again, I was accused by one citizen of being, you're just so sterile. I am sterile. Economic development is sterile. It's not emotional. It's a business calculation. You have to determine which opportunities you want to go after. And so the key thing is power supply. Southern Virginia still has a considerable amount of available electrons which can handle a data center, which allows them to be in operation in 18 to 24 months. It's speed to market. It's pure speed. Currently in Northern Virginia, they're telling folks we can't even get to your service until 4+ years out. And it's just due to unavailability of electrons. And when I say electrons, it's power. Southern Virginia, we will be depleted of electrons in the near future unless generation is developed in the region and or additional high voltage lines are constructed in the region. You're already seeing that. I think I saw an article, or I think I saw a news release come out from Appalachian Power saying, hey, we're building a 138 across, I think, Alta Vista.
Through Alta Vista, that's correct.
So again, I didn't even see that until this was completed. Yeah. It's coming. And they have to do it. Otherwise, our grid's going to fail. So again, it's just because of the region's growing, but also the fact that, Microsoft just announced that it purchased property just south of our region in Person County, the Person County mega site for a large data center. What happens here is not in a vacuum. These things are all interrelated. And so if you're not utilizing the electrons, somebody else is going to.
That's right.
Lower cost of land with still close proximity to key internet nodes. So key internet nodes are going to be Ashburn, Virginia, Sandston, the QTS facility, and Marietta, Georgia. One that a lot of people don't realize, but it's something that site selectors are always looking at, low disaster risk. We're not in a high seismic opportunities area, right? So meaning, these servers are extremely precise pieces of equipment. We're in a low hurricane wind zone, and we're outside of the blast radius of DC. And again, that's for a bomb. They look at that. If something like that happened, is their asset being taken out? Yes, our soils are very favorable for farming. One of the things that they're also favorable for in our topography is that it also allows us to carry heavy loads. And that's why we were getting so many looks at the mega site for large projects. So our natural soils enable us to get about 3,500 pounds per square foot. And what that means is that that's amazing, because other communities have to do pillars and all of this different soil amendment, which is millions of dollars. And again, our natural soils allow us to do that. Because of the rolling terrain that you see, it's not wise to build on a flat site. And so again, it allows you to do balance and grading so you can get water to run off while at the same time reducing those costs. The other thing that's going to be really unique here looking forward is microgrid opportunities. Due to the county having strategic access to multiple gas lines of excess capacity, primarily the Mountain Valley Pipeline, developers can address the number one concern, power supply, by generating it on site. and that's utilizing natural gas. So of course, we're all seeing that right now with the Balico project. In the near future, developers will be deploying small modular reactors, SMRs, with the same purpose. The existing grid cannot take it. So they're going to start bringing the power source to those assets. And it's, again, I told that particular citizen, I said, look, it's an opportunity. The board can accept that opportunity, they can reject the opportunity. It's okay. And so again, that's what we see. So head in the guillotine, I'll put it in there for you. Here's how I view data centers. Data centers are a necessity for modern life, and the need will only continue to grow due to more AI complex applications. So don't think about Facebook, think about medical, transportation, defense, and energy. They're all going to utilize these applications. It is highly unlikely that they will be obsolete in 10 to 20 years. I've heard that said in this community several times. I think people are getting confused about the fact that the centers themselves are not obsolete, but the equipment within them is. And so the equipment is typically replaced every 2 to 3 years. And again, that's why they generate so much revenue, because nothing depreciates. Companies and private funds would not be investing billions of dollars to abandon them in the near term. It's not good business. From a municipal finance perspective, data centers are the highest earner per acre, bar none. They require little to no services, they create limited direct jobs, and they do not depreciate in value because they are constantly modifying the equipment as personal property. And though they do not though they do not have a high job creation number per acre, they do surprisingly have a pretty impressive multiplier effect of about 4.1 indirect jobs for every job created within the data center. Okay? Again, just facts. And this will be a presentation that's going to make everybody mad, which is, again, typically those types of presentations allow you to know that it's hopefully going to be pretty realistic. Data centers do create noise, and the ultimate level of noise is dependent upon the facility's application. So data and crypto mining create more noise. There are ways to reduce that noise: horizontal buffer, additional insulation. The technology is getting better, but again, the fact is they create noise. Data centers generate very limited long-term traffic once completed, yes. However, during construction period, these sites are some of the most intensive construction areas in the industry. For our average hyperscale data center, 100 megawatts to 200 megawatts, the construction timeline is typically between 3 to 5 years. There is local disruption of life for the immediate residents. There's no denying that. There's also lots of hungry construction workers and convenience needs, including accommodations. So, you give some, you lose some. Due to the intensive nature of construction, both capital and infrastructure, once a data center develops, it typically will continue to expand to take advantage of that infrastructure until it has exhausted or causes additional infrastructure to be built. And this means that construction can be ongoing for 10 to 15 plus years, and I ask you to see Microsoft in Mecklenburg County. And that's something that, again, it's just a reality of how they structure their business model. Water use, something else that often comes up in conversation. Volumes of actual water use vary widely based upon the cooling technology, which also impacts the noise creation. Water-cooled facilities recirculate the water through the facility to cool the air in the server rooms. The water is ultimately heated and released as steam. It's roughly 1/2 to 2/3. These facilities tend to be quieter. The industry standard is roughly 600,000 gallons per day to 1 million gallons per day for 100 megawatts of water-cooled data centers. So it's a big water user. Air-cooled facilities utilize HVAC systems. So again, not to simplify it too much, but think about your heat pump outside your house. It's really big. These facilities can be louder, obviously, than a water-cooled facility. There appears to be no industry standard of use since it is highly dependent upon the HVAC technology. The climate of the location, is it a hot climate? Is it a warm climate? That depends how much it's going to run. And its rapid transition. And so with this said, some studies have shown water use to be probably around 250,000 to 600,000 gallons per day per 100 megawatts for an air-cooled data center. So again, it kind of demonstrates how this can work. What I've personally seen from doing research and looking at projects that have been announced elsewhere and all over the country and really the world, I personally would believe that the real answer is likely going to lie between what is stated by quote-unquote both sides. The use will likely be higher than that stated by the developer and or the company, but less than what was stated by its critics. It's going to be in the middle. The other thing I've heard oftentimes here recently is that a segment of the population states, just put it at Berry Hill. Here's why that is not a good idea. It's not a good long-term strategy. It's something you can certainly do, but I just don't think it's wise. Again, the Southern Virginia mega site is very unique to the county. You saw this, this last week, 2015 jobs, $1.35+ billion on 212 acres. When I look at sites, I look at what is the acreage potential for output. And so that mega site has the real potential of having 1+ direct job creation per 1 acre of land. Again, a data center at the mega site would probably result in somewhere around 0.15 to 0.2 per acre of land. And again, RIFLA has determined that this does not meet the definition of success, even with potential multipliers, which are lower than the target industries that we're going after. So again, that's just job fact. Multiple partners have provided significant funding for transformative manufacturing operations, right, including the new connector road, which we opened last week, improved rail, Norfolk Southern, over $7 million into that, brand new gas gate that we're in the process of building, new Empark substation, $22 million from AEP, site due diligence, you name it. All of that is beyond what is needed or required to serve a data center campus. It's way beyond what they need. Plus, active rail and data centers do not mix. Rail causes vibrations, which can impact sensitive server equipment. Mm-hmm. Data centers don't want to be next to rail, so that's going to be something that they would have to try to overcome. It would probably add millions of dollars to the development process of trying to take into account, I guess, and stabilize that vibration. The mega site's the only location, again, right, I'm a data guy, I'm looking at everything we got. That's really, truly the only pinpoint in the county that allows us to capture all 5 metros or portions of those metros within the 60-mile radius, which is what mega site clients are looking for. So that's going to be Danville, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and a portion of both Raleigh and Durham. And so again, this is where we get our large labor force numbers, 715,000 labor force, and labor force being 16 to 64 within that area. That's a really good number. Savannah, for example, where Hyundai went, was somewhere right around 400,000. They're going to have trouble down there. Data centers are not concerned with labor force metrics. That's not what they're chasing. And then again, the Southern Virginia mega site's highest use is to attract projects that result in both large capital investments and job creation, not just one. And then final statement on data centers, whether one is pro or con, the fact remains that data centers are an opportunity for the county. There are limited areas in the county where these can occur. The folks that have approached you, they have done it based upon the fact that they found those areas. I'm a sites guy. When I'm driving around, I'm like, okay, where could these things be? There's only 3 places in the county based upon current technology. Just east of Danville, because that's where the 230 kV electron is, that has a kV line that has probably 170 some megawatts of electrons sitting there. Those guys found it, they got it. Trying to create your own power, which is where the 2 gas lines connect. Transco Village, obviously that's got attention on it. The mega site's the other one. So again, that's just the only places with the current technology where you could actually really do this. Data centers are like my mom's Oriapi. Once you plant one, they will spread.
Yep.
So you're right, if you want to capitalize on something like this, I recommend that you work with Emily and her team to put in development safeguards and to control that. And the key thing is, and you hear this on both sides, data centers do not transform communities. They will give you all the money in the world for local government. So again, yes, they generate incredible revenue for the host locality. We'll have nice schools like Mecklenburg County. We'll have the newest fleet of vehicles and buses for county employees. You'll have the best paid staff. And of course, right, for political purposes, you'll be able to quote unquote buy down the local taxes, which is what you're doing by doing that. But I've yet to see a rural community with a data center alone have a strong socioeconomic benefits, and traditional economic development's required, meaning you're creating jobs and you're also getting the investment. So again, I would ask anybody, when you drive through Mecklenburg County, and I'm not picking on Mecklenburg County, 158, would you say that that's a transformed community? I would say that the answer would probably be no, and the reason being is because that money is not ultimately getting into everyone's hands. So this then comes to this part of it now, trying to transition into looking forward and planning. What will our county look like in 20 years? We have a couple options here, and I've experienced all of them. Number 1, stop, anti-growth, primary focus on revenue generation, low taxes. Number 2, unlimited and unplanned growth, primary focus on jobs, low taxes. Number 3, controlled and targeted growth, focus on both revenue generation and jobs, implement a proactive capital investment plan, and you have low to moderate taxes. Obviously, option 1 results in a continued aging county and is a short-term solution. It's good for all of us while we're here, but what happens when either the population declines, so your numbers are gone, or the revenue source eventually ceases? Taxes will exponentially increase and it's more difficult to regain growth. I have lived this. I was in a community, one of my first positions, and the community, its number 1 revenue source, we went through the Great Recession, it was a landfill, and right during the Great Recession, construction stopped. So all that construction debris going into the landfills stopped. And that community lost, that landfill provided somewhere in the range of over about 25% of the revenue source that was coming into that community, just huge amount. And we went through furloughs. We had to have awkward conversations of, do we fund high school sports this year? I did reduction in staffs. You name it across the board. It was not a good conversation. Some people were very upset because we weren't able to take care of the kitty cats and the dogs. You name it. Those things all came out. That's not a good situation. Option number 2, I have this one underlined. I think is on the current path we're on. As of today, results in the county continuing to extend its services and trying to catch up to development. Without a plan, the county will be inefficient in meeting the needs of housing, schools, and emergency services and their associated infrastructure. Local taxes will increase to keep up with the service demand, right? You got to pay for it somehow or you're going to fall behind. And this will price out many of your current residents. I think that's the path we're currently on. Just being, right, you pay me to tell you what I think, that's what I think. Option number 3 is it results in development in targeted areas and focuses resources on high yield potentials. A proactive capital improvements plan for infrastructure results in the county proactively extending water and sewer lines and service to those targeted areas for housing and industry. This approach also results in the county having a reasonable approach to minimize local taxing impacts. This is what the IDA favors. This is why I think we're really here this afternoon in the IDA wanting to continue this conversation. So let's plan for growth. I'm going to walk through very quickly the Regional Economic Development Strategic Plan that the Regional Industrial Facility Authority is doing. The IDA is currently looking at doing a local county-focused economic development plan, which Dr. Fawcett, Chairman Fawcett, will talk through. And then there's also this opportunity of working with Emily's team to update the county's comprehensive plan and future land use map. One thing I want to point out is that what the county IDA and what RIFA does is just one component of what ultimately could go into the comp plan. The comp plan cannot be a biased document. It has to be a document that represents the will of the people. I've been in Emily's position, so I just want to make sure, and I know the IDA sincerely supports that, but again, I think the IDA wants to try to potentially utilize some of its resources to help the county as it goes through these very difficult discussions of trying to determine what this county will look like decades from now. And so again, making sure that Emily has the resources to be successful. Regional Economic Development Strategic Plan, just very quickly, the approximate timeline, we're looking at pretty much 1 year here, fall 2024. This is being paid for 2/3 by the Regional Industrial Facility Authority and 1/3 by Danville Regional Foundation. And so key goals, of course, we did an economic development strategic plan for the region in 2019. A lot of that came to pass. An opportunity analysis given positive developments and the likelihood of more. And again, looking ahead now to 2042, what is it going to look like in our region? Looking at the 6 main components here of the plan, doing a cluster analysis, looking at sites, incentives. We can pull back now on incentives. The landscape has changed here. And so again, we can prioritize where we put dollars. And of course, we in the county, everything that we do incentive-wise is always after the fact. So it's always, again, not where we're giving companies money up front, but just what we're the basket of funds going to companies. We can start to dial it back, and we can be more targeted towards more impactful projects. Yes, looking at data center analysis, looking at workforce analysis, and of course focusing on agriculture and forestry sector opportunities. So again, looking at the industry cluster analysis, this is kind of what they would look at. It's the same information that we already kind of know from day-to-day inquiries from companies, but just taking a closer dive. Industrial sites and buildings, again, looking at what national site selectors are looking for. So pretty much doing what I just did for you at a much more in-depth level, and then looking at additional opportunities of really kind of diving in more to those numbers of what those costs would be. Incentive policies and programs, right? Looking at the recommended policy changes, updates, framework for crafting incentive offers. Are we doing this the right way? Again, I'm not saying that what we're doing is the best way to do it. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. And so it's, what are other communities are doing that we could improve on? Data center analysis, again, getting, I think, right back to that question of, if it's an opportunity that you want to consider, we need to know more about it. And how that works and what's a favorable tax rate and all of these different things. So again, looking at that. Workforce analysis. This is really getting now from analyzing the workforce to how do we better position our community for talent attraction. We need to now not only keep folks here, but we need to attract people into our community. And then of course the agriculture and forestry sector opportunities especially in the county. So again, this is kind of the question that will be ultimately, asked of stakeholders, for this project. What question would you most like answered? And so again, this is something I think we can probably discuss here in a little bit. I believe, Dr. Fawcett, you're going to run through the county plan.
Thank you so much, Matt. As you can tell, a lot of thought and proactive energy has gone into this presentation today, so thank you for being so open to that. You heard that we as a county have an opportunity to participate in a regional economic plan. So I'd like to publicly thank Mr. Ingram as chair of RIFA for the contribution that you guys have made in partnering up with DRF around that to see to it that there is this regional umbrella. Thank you very much, Mr. Ingram. I came to you in August of last year, which seems like forever ago to me, and told you that we had this opportunity. We've continued to pursue it. Our board has discussed it in every single meeting that we've had. And so today we come to you saying, here's what we've done, here's what the group has done, our board, as well as what the Regional Foundation along with RIFA has done to advance that. Now, I came to you last year in August talking about a uniquely Pennsylvania County plan. So if you would think about this as an umbrella, right, that has the regional plan over it, and then the city of Danville has their unique priorities. They're looking at some of the same things we are, but their particular set of needs are more site-specific to them, which are not necessarily ours. For instance, I think at one time they were considering looking at the regentrification of North Main and that particular community and how to create some economic stimulus and regentrify housing in that particular area. That's not really a concern of ours. So in becoming more site-specific, you have what's good for our region, then that data feeds what's good for the city of Danville and then offers us an opportunity to see what's good for uniquely Pennsylvania County type projects. So you see our goal here, and gentlemen, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but our goal is to have conversations with various community stakeholders. And so the Regional Economic Development Strategic Plan does some of that. We use data from that, but we look at what's uniquely Pennsylvania County. And you've gotten a lot of information already from Matt about this. So we've chosen the same provider that RIFA, thank you Mr. Ingram, as well as DRF is supporting. We think that the assimilation of that data and yet their willingness to break it out specifically and do study here in Pennsylvania County is really, really important. So they bring a powerhouse economic leadership team, and we are really excited to fund this project in part because of the team. Matt mentioned the AFOR executed 2019 study, worked with this same team there, and we've seen much of that come to fruition. I had the opportunity then, I think I was serving with Mr. Height at that time, on the IDA. So I had the opportunity to serve on that particular strategic planning group, and we're just really excited to see some of the things come through. these names probably don't mean anything to you. Greg explained these to us in some detail. What I will say to you is that the deliverables that we receive are done by an A-plus organization with A-plus players. So this is major league opportunity for Pittsylvania County. You see some of their experiences. Some of these counties are similar to ours. Chatham County down in North Carolina, of course, is adjacent to or close, some of the same proximity that we have, in fact, to the Triangle area. Nash County, North Carolina, happens to be one near and dear to my heart because I grew up just a few miles east of there. Mr. Bowman knows all about Nash County and what they've been able to achieve there. So some of the same, they mention these because some of their same infrastructure opportunities that we have are represented in the work that they've done for them. So the first big piece we're going to look at is housing. You see here statements about what nationally we're experiencing in housing. If you had told me, gentlemen, that when that first apartment was constructed in the nascent River District in the city of Danville, that people would be paying what they're paying today to live there, and that there would be 100% occupancy rate in every single one of those, I'd have said, what have you been smoking that was grown out in the county? It would have just been, it was beyond my ability to believe. And yet here we are today, and the reality is that there is 100% occupancy. They're putting amazing apartments and townhomes, the White Mill being an example of that. There's very little opportunity left in the city of Danville for housing to be constructed. Now, you and I also know that a balance is required for economic development. So what's the number, approximate number for an investment in a home that we can tax to create the kind of infrastructure we need and support it with a school system? It's north of 400,000 now, is that correct? I think those are the numbers you've been given, maybe closer to 450. And so we need to be mindful that while housing is an amazing opportunity as people come to work at the mega site, it's going to be really hard to pay the freight for creating the kind of lifestyle that we want in Pennsylvania County. So that's why we are employing this particular group, because they can look at what are the housing needs, and thank you, board, for forthrightly supporting the first of those projects out at Axton. And what can we do to see where are the best opportunities for housing based on our current infrastructure? And so this group will do that very thing and look at the various housing and economic development opportunities that we have. So they'll look at those targeted areas. They will identify them so that we won't just fall prey to whatever developer comes into our area and sees what's obvious to him or her, but instead we will have targeted areas that we say, here is what we prefer, here's what we're after. And so you can just read through the sheets there and see that they'll do the analysis of the data and the kinds of things that guys like Matt get all giddy about, as you heard him do his presentation today. The final project we're after are deliverables. That's really what we want to see come out of this project, and that's why the investment is so important, we think. Now, the second part of that is talent attraction and retention. I know some of you to be grandparents, and I know that you want to be cared for when you can no longer care for yourself. And family is the first group of people we turn to, right?
Yes, sir.
Besides the great joy of watching grandchildren grow up. That's wonderful. We've seen the talent drain begin to reverse as amazing companies like Technista, for instance, with the Robertsons, took over the former Panaceutics building, and so now they're hiring young people there. And it's absolutely amazing how they're building on the U.S. Navy's work from the DOD contracts that we're getting into this area. That's amazing that they're pulling from our current talent pool. Gentlemen, what we want to see is persons from outside this area who are longing for the high quality of life that we have here, who bring those skill sets into our area and want to be a part of what it is that's happening in Pennsylvania County. So talent attraction and retention are supremely important. Our front door can be amazing and we can keep it open and leave the light on for them all we want. But frankly, if our back door is 2, 3, 10 times the size of our front door, they're going to they're actually going to pass through Pennsylvania County on their way back to Raleigh or someplace like that.
Right.
So we want to create a quality of life that is good for them, and this is what particularly Gen Z is after. Gen Z is, I'm a boomer, and then we have the millennials, and then Gen Z. Gen Z is becoming a burgeoning force, almost like the pig in the python, population python as it was with us boomers. They are demanding quality of life issues, or they simply will not move into a community. They are asking the questions like outdoor recreation. Oh my God, who wouldn't want to live in Pennsylvania County because of the outdoor recreation opportunities that we have? They're requiring that. So parlaying our natural resources into amazing opportunities to create the kind of lifestyle that Gen Z wants is just right in front of us. Now that requires good stewardship. So one of the things that we're really interested in and finding attractive about the end result that comes out of this particular study is that there's a balance here. There's a balance between talent attraction, talent retention, that means the creation of new jobs, and maintaining or improving the quality of life that we experience, which of course involves our school systems as well as the natural resources that we have around us. Again, friends, we're looking for a deliverable to come right out of this, and that deliverable goes into what we think is just as important as this economic development study, and that is the comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan, so the deliverable that comes out of this is the comprehensive plan receives that initial analysis of data that says, here's the best farmland in Pennsylvania County. Here's where your infrastructure is, like natural gas. You heard Matt continue to talk about that. Here's where natural gas is available, where this kind of manufacturing can go, so that there's a balanced growth. Now, we're looking at spending, and remember, we're a quasi-government agency. We don't have taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Ken Bowman, for helping the IDA begin to understand its ability to do business deals and generate revenue in that way. We've done quite well with that. You've seen our financials, hopefully. Under Mr. Height's leadership, we instituted that and just continued, and we've continued to grow. So we're looking at spending a corpus of $200,000. And what we're committed to get this study done, what we're committed to is spending an additional $20,000. And here's why. We think involving our community is essential to economic development and growth. To hear from our citizenry, what kind of growth do you want? Where do you want it? How do you want to preserve and maintain, even improve our quality of life? And so that additional $20,000 will enable this particular group to come in and hold focus groups, to talk to people just like you and me, to get ahead of what you just experienced in Mr. Tucker's district, to ask those questions, to hear from citizens. And if they say, nope, this is more important to us than putting this kind of manufacturing facility here, we then have that information. We know what the strategic use is. We think community involvement is immensely important in this particular project. We think it's a deal at only 10% more cost because, well, after Balico, who wants to engage the community, right? Because it was just that way. We've got to engage the community and get ahead of that. So we come out with two deliverables, the Housing Summit information, and all that information you've seen, but we get specific housing data about Pennsylvania County, and here's the best places to build single family, multifamily, so that Mr. Ingram in his district, so you don't experience what Mr. Ingram went through, right, in trying to maintain his political career with all of that information and misinformation, I might add, that was being shared. Those decisions are made ahead of time. That deliverable goes into a comprehensive plan so that zoning changes can be done proactively as opposed to reactively. And then so that special use permits and other things like that can happen. Now, it's really important, we think, for those deliverables to go right into a comprehensive plan. In fact, we think it's so important that we are willing to invest in that comprehensive plan for the good of Pennsylvania County.
Yes, sir.
Rather than expecting the taxpayers and you guys, trying to figure out how to carry this burden off of real estate taxes, we are willing to step up into We've even had conversations, gentlemen, about paying for all of that comprehensive plan. We want to work strategically with you to see that happen, because we're committed to what Emily Ragsdale is doing in community development for the good of the citizenry, as well as maintaining and improving our quality of life and talent attraction and analysis. So I'd like to invite Emily to come up now, and she's going to talk to you more about that comprehensive plan because she knows so much more about it than I do. My takeaway for you is that you hear us supporting the deliverables of this project going into a comprehensive plan, so much so that we're willing to help pay for that comprehensive plan to see that it's done. And then after Emily finishes, I'll come back and talk to you about one specific thing that we think is key to allowing economic development to happen faster. And Mr. Bowman, I see that finger.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Yes,
ask
sir.
one question. So just for clarification, before you go to Emily there, so the RIFA is going to contract with economic leadership to do their strategic plan. So are you saying that you're going to piggyback with them
Yes.
to do the county strategic plan?
Yes. Here's what I'm saying
That's all I want
specifically.
is clarification.
RIFA and DRF. RIFA's paying 2/3, Mr. Ingram, and then DRF's paying 1/3 for the regional plan.
Right.
We're piggybacking on that. That data will flow into our plan, and that's why it's only a $200,000 with community involvement, $220,000 plan. You guys are paying much, much more than that to get the regional plan done. So the spirit of regional cooperation continues. RIFA and DRF paying for the regional plan, City of Danville kicking in whatever it is that they're paying for their particular plan that uses that same data, and then us. So that rising tide lifts all of our ships together.
So they will have the Pittsylvania County plan at the same time RIFA has its plan.
I'm not exactly sure about the timing. We'll have to see how the resources roll with that. One of the things I was implying when I said I came to you in August of 23 was that we've been waiting. Our board's been ready. Let's go, let's do our plan. We've asked Matt more times than he probably cares to remember. Are they ready? Are they ready? We drug our feet until the funding sources could be approved for the regional cooperation plan and until the City of Danville got theirs together. So the goal, Mr. Bowman, is for all of us to get these plans together and then to begin the implementation as a whole so that the Dan River region improves together.
Excellent. That's what I need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that question. Anybody else? Okay,
Any more questions, Mr. Fawcett?
all right. Emily.
Good, thank you. All right, Miss Emily, welcome.
Thank you. So as the board knows, staff has asked last year for funding to do our comprehensive plan. We have $100,250 in the budget currently this year for the comprehensive plan. We know that that will not touch a total update. The last time that our comprehensive plan was updated was in 2010. A lot has changed in our community, in the region, in the state, in the world since 2010. We know that our comprehensive plan is at a point where we can't just update it. We need a total rewrite. We're at a very pivotal moment right now. We see a lot of new development coming in. We know that we're on the verge of needing a lot of housing. We are on the verge of a lot of industrial growth in certain areas, commercial growth. And what that comprehensive plan is going to do is it's going to help us determine what we want to look like in the next 20 to 30 years, where we want that growth to be, where we want to preserve our agricultural communities so that we can have the best of both worlds. We can grow, we can have industrial areas, but yet we can still preserve our agriculture and our history in this area. We don't have to have one or the other, but we need a solid plan to make sure that we can do that moving forward. We know that that needs to be updated. What the comprehensive plan is going to do is it's going to pull all of these documents that have been being discussed recently as far as economic development. It's also going to look at parks and recreation. It's going to look at utilities, so public works, water, sewer, where those improvements should be so that we can sustain that growth. It's going to look at our transportation systems, where we need to be focused on making improvements to our transportation network throughout the county. And then our future land use map, and that's going to be a big piece because really all of our zoning decisions should be based in that future land use map. That's a good, solid approach to zoning. You have a clear plan moving forward. You know what you want your community to look like. You know what kind of growth you want to experience, and you have a clear map of how to get there as long as you follow that future land use map. So the board supported staff, gave us money to at least get started collecting funds last year. We know that that's not going to touch the money that's needed. We're currently trying to get together good cost estimates depending on how large or small you want your comprehensive plan to be. They can range from $200,000 up to over $1 million. So we just need to determine what we want to be, where we want to go, and we need a good solid plan to get there. The IDA is in support of that, and staff greatly appreciates that. But as Matt stated, we need to make sure that this is a non-biased approach. This is not what staff wants. This is not what one board or commission wants. It's not even what the public wants. It's a good collective approach to what we all collectively want our community to look like in the next 20 to 30 years. I think you had a question.
I got a question. Well, not necessarily a question, but Mr. Fawcett, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you too, Emily. Several months back, we had a meeting with, you know where I'm going with this, with Clark Castile. And he said that he would be willing to go before his board as well and contribute towards the comprehensive plan. So with some help here, some help there, and what we do have, I'm fully in favor of getting all that we can and moving forward, because we're going to have this for future development, basically a starting point for what's coming. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and like I say, Mr. Tucker was involved in the meeting as well. So.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Emily something before she takes off?
Mr. Ragsdale, Mr. Bowman has a question.
So I know the answer to this, but I want you to, for the public, to answer the question. So this is going to cost anywhere from $200,000 to upwards of $1 million, depending on who we get a contract with to do this. Can it be done in-house?
Not a quality one that we need, because I don't have the bandwidth. I have 8 staff, and when I say 8 staff, we handle everything from all of the building inspections in the county to erosion and stormwater to planning and zoning, and I am in the weeds much more than most community development directors are, just because we are a very small staff. I go out knocking on doors and posting violations to people, and you know that's not something that you normally do at a director level. But that's just how we we can maintain what we do with the little staff that we have. So we could not have the quality plan that we need based on just the limited resources that we have in-house. Additionally, if you have a good, thorough, comprehensive plan, you need an outside perspective. You need someone to come in with eyes wide open and be able to look at things from a lot of different angles and pull all of this information together and analyze it in a way that maybe you're going to realize some things that those of us who work in it day in and day out don't see, just because we are heavily involved in it. So my professional recommendation would be that we do not do this in-house, that if we want a good quality plan that's going to help us determine where we go in the future and get us to a place that's sustainable, and that we have smart growth techniques and we are able to continue to grow and sustain the development that we're seeing, we definitely need someone to come in now and help us develop that pathway forward so that we are being proactive instead of reactive to that development.
Okay, so the state code recommends that a county update this about every 5 years, so we're way past due.
So you have to review it every 5 years. We do review it every 5 years per state code, so we are in compliance with state code. We have not done a total rewrite since 2010.
Okay, so this would give us a good foundation to start with.
Yes.
Make this investment here, get this done, and then within 5 years, and we'll continue to look at it on an annual basis, but make those refresher changes that we need to, and we won't have to do this again if we stay on top of it.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Tucker?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
yes, very quickly, I just wanted to agree with Ms. Ragsdale, and thank you for bringing us up to speed. But you're 100% correct. Psychologists say that we as human beings build blind spots. They call it scotomas. We look at it in your words day in and day out, but we're blinded by what we see. So we need someone to come in from the outside and basically give us a new perspective. Okay, so we want to make sure that happens. But, I think we should be able to find the money along with what monies has been committed already, and along with Mr. Castile and his board. So I think it's very, very necessary. We just looked at, possibly somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 billion in investment in this region, in this community. So we need some type of master plan so that, we can have a dialogue with the community, with different boards, so that everybody has a clear vision of the direction that we're going in. So, yeah, I'm on board.
Mr. Dudley, you have a question, sir?
Yes, sir. Also, as we work on the comprehensive plan and starting to see more industry coming in, I think we really need to look at Emily's staff, because they're stretched thin as it is, and more housing, more business, more economic development means more inspections, and you're thinned out as it is. So I think it's something that our board needs to address as well, is to add, or if you can contract it out, that's fine, but if not, I think we've got to add something to that department as it grows. So thank you, sir.
Mr. Dudley, I so appreciate what you're saying there, because that has been an item, and we've invited Emily into our board meeting and advocated that very case with her, and she felt very supported by our board. And if I could talk specifically, and you want to join in with me on this, stormwater permitting has particularly been something that's a challenge. Right now, that is not done in-house. It is sent to DEQ, and I'm an author and a writer, and so I think of manuscripts piled up on a desk, and we refer to that in the publishing world as slush piles. I don't know what you call it in her world, but it's a slush pile. And so we're seeing things that would take, and we're so blessed on our board to have persons like John Daniel, who are in this space every day, advising us. Tim Reynolds with Hurt and Profit is in this space every single day. And so they bring us real-time data about how long this stormwater permitting, if you disturb more than 0.99 of an acre, then you've got to go do some sort of erosion sediment control plan, and you got to dig ponds. And if you've been through Tight Squeeze lately, you've seen what it took. Well, all that dirt being moved out of Tight Squeeze took over a year, and that was a very large project, but it took over a year to get the permitting done for that, so Norman Riddle could start moving dirt out there. What we see other municipalities doing is a turnaround time of maybe 6 weeks. Is that close to accurate? If it's done in-house, whether it's contracted out to a third party like you're talking about, Mr. Dudley, or whether it's done by staff, is immaterial. It moves in about 6 weeks. We're seeing 6 months and more. 6 to 9 months is what Mr. Daniel is telling us. That slows the pace of economic development down. That makes world-renowned housing builders turn a deaf ear to what's going on in our community. That makes large corporations say, well, we're not sure you're really serious about economic development. So again, we are working with Emily and want to partner with you strategically around enhancing her department, not just with more personnel, but more strategic hires within that personnel. And if that means that the person in her department receives the paperwork, processes the applications, and passes it on to a third-party company, those fees are then passed on to the developers. But the process is expedited more quickly, because time literally is money. When you can't move dirt, you can't build a building, and that company is interested in putting, whether it's manufacturing or distribution or high science, additive manufacturing even, they're not going to be very motivated to come to our community and create the kind of quality of life that we're looking for our citizenry. So yes, we would love to continue that conversation about
sir.
how your board and our board can partner with Emily to get this done and through so that we're prepared
Yes, sir.
for the comprehensive plan implementation at a later time. Would you like to speak to that?
And I can just update you also. Staff is currently doing some benchmarking with surrounding localities to figure out the ones that do have stormwater programs, how many stormwater permits they issue per year, how many inspections they do per year, what their fees look like, how many staff members that takes to implement, kind of what their overall budget looks like. Right now, we only do erosion and sediment control. So anytime you disturb over 10,000 square feet in the county, unless it's an exempt use, you have to submit an erosion and sediment control plan to my office. We review that. We have one staff person that does that. They review that plan. They then have to do inspections. Those inspections are biweekly inspections for all commercial projects, and then an additional inspection after every major rain event, which is a quarter of an inch. I can't even talk right now, sorry.
It's okay.
So, that's a lot of field time. So you're doing a lot of inspections plus plan reviews that are coming in. In 2019, 2020, we did 10 to 11 erosion and sediment control plan reviews a year. After about 21, 22, that has doubled, and that number is continuing to rise. We still only have one staff person doing all of those plan reviews and all of those inspections. They also have to inspect residential. They just have those inspections are spaced out a little bit. So you're not just looking at all of our commercial sites, you're also looking at all of our residential sites. If we take on stormwater, that's additional plans that have to be reviewed. There are additional calculations that have to be looked at. You're looking at pre and post quantity and quality runoff. So there's a higher level of degree that these plans have to be reviewed with. We also have additional inspections, and then we have maintenance of any of their BMPs. So any of those ponds that are put in, we have long-term maintenance that will have to be done by our staff. So we're looking at how we can make this work. We are looking at possibly doing third party. So what we would do is we just have to set our fees high enough that we could cover both third party plan review and third party inspections, which is a viable option. We're also looking at how many additional staff it may take to accommodate the additional workload and weighing one against the other. So we just got all that information back from surrounding localities. We have not had a chance to kind of dive into it yet, but once we do, we'll have something that we can come back and present to both the IDA and the board as kind of what our recommendation for moving forward is going to be.
Mr. Chairman, before you
Sir.
leave, Ms. Emily, the future is now. With the announcement last week of microporous, you right now do not have the inspectors that you're going to need for even this project. So in my mind, I'm thinking you're going to need at a minimum 2, if not 3 more inspectors, because they're going to have to be very hands-on with the build-out of microporous. Plus, at the same time, you can't frustrate the citizens that are coming in for regular building permits, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I ran on was, as Dr. Fawcett was talking about, the permitting end of it, was streamlining a lot of that red tape, because it is very, very frustrating when you tell someone, okay, you can get your permit, but it's probably going to take us 6 weeks to 2 months to get it processed. Well, all of a sudden, this individual has lost their enthusiasm about even completing the project. So, I think this board and I don't want to speak for them, but I think this board really needs to address that with our upcoming budget. We're getting ready to work on the budget, and this is one of the critical areas that I see that we need to fix post haste.
I will say, it doesn't just stop with staff from my department. We are completely out of space where we are.
Yep.
So just because you give me additional positions doesn't mean that we have anywhere to put them currently. So it's not kind of we could fund, 3 additional positions and that would solve the problem. We have had building and grounds in my office, I don't know how many times, looking at where we can put walls and can we redivide this room up so we can just fit a desk in this space. And they can't find a good solution for any additional space. So, we're still working through a lot of different areas that we're going to need to look at when we grow. But
Yes, ma'am. I understand your concerns, but I would start the process and hire those individuals, and, we're going to have faith that they are going to be more out in the field than in the office. Okay.
I think that's called a mobile office. So that means your people will be getting really nice trucks, right?
That's right.
I heard that. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, energy, and attention. You've been so engaged through a very long presentation, and I thank you for that. What you hear us talking about is a 3-legged stool. The first is the economic development plan, the strategic plan, our participation with the City of Danville, and then the regional cooperation. Unless you rise up and attack me right now, I am confident that our board tomorrow night will approve the plan that's in front of us just as we presented it to you today. So understand, the future is now.
Yes, sir.
The clock starts tomorrow night at 6 o'clock when we meet. Second thing is this comprehensive plan. Sometime next year, our goal is for Greg Payne and Ted Abernathy and Associates to bring us back that economic development plan. We will, of course, have high-level discussions with the regional cooperation plan and with the City of Danville so that, again, that rising tide is going to lift all of our ships. Those deliverables are going to go right into the comprehensive plan. So know that you have a partner in this board for funding that comprehensive plan, and also DRF in funding that comprehensive plan. And then that third piece is working proactively with Emily's department to meet this rising demand. And we, on our board, have had exploratory conversations about how we can partner with you in doing that from the economic development proceeds that we receive from the great projects that are happening here. So thank you so much. We've been asking for this kind of meeting with you guys for a time. Thank you, Vincent, for Mr. Shorter, for making this happen. You've got a partner in us committed to the good of the citizenry in Pittsylvania County and with balanced economic development growth.
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate your time and energy today. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you, sir.
Fawcett. Appreciate it
sir.
so much.
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Fawcett or Matt? Mr. Rowe?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I do. I hate to ask all these questions, but just a couple, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You always ask questions. Go ahead.
And I do, and I try to get a good answer. So, Dr. Fawcett, thank you. It was great. So just to caveat with the microporous announcement that came, and when we look at the folks that attended the ceremony the other day, there was a great number of people there, and people I hadn't seen in years were there, and it was a good thing because a lot of people had worked on that. But what I was encouraged to see, and I would ask the public to keep this in mind also, is we're not in a vacuum here because the City of Eden sent their folks up to
that was
the
amazing,
announcement.
wasn't
Years ago, there was an agreement made between Virginia and North Carolina to connect that wastewater treatment line to the mega site so it would take part.
Right.
Well, during that announcement, there was also sidebar conversations there. We did the hard work. This county and Danville did the hard work going out there and recruiting and bringing in that large company that everybody had been hoping for. The easy work now is for Eden, Rockingham County, Roxborough, Martinsville, those folks that are adjacent to us, Halifax and Henry County. They're going to be looking at those residential sites and those mixed-use developments. They're the ones that are going to benefit if we don't get on board with what you just presented, what Emily presented with the comprehensive plan. These are things that should have been in place years ago. They should have been things that we were working off of. We're also working on our planning ordinance right now. As a matter of fact, I think it's on the agenda tonight for review and approve. That's been 2 years in the making. We need to do better on getting our documents in order for these announcements that are coming down the pike, because if we're slow in doing that, then we're going to lose out again. And so these adjacent and adjoining localities here are going to be jumping up and down with their developers looking for places for people to live and commute to our location, and we get none of that tax revenue.
That's an excellent point.
So,
Excellent point. I was heartened to see the city of Eden, or the town of Eden there. I really was. But that very reality occurred to me, that for some people living in Eden, it's going to be a closer proximity to the mega site.
That's
and
correct.
so we need to be mindful of that. While we want them to prosper, we need to be proactive in planning
right.
for providing the kind of quality of life that's uniquely Pennsylvania County.
Absolutely. And the last thing I would say is, it came up about these mega sites, and we need property. We need land to look at, because Matt did a great job. I was thinking about that also over the last few weeks of our industrial parks. These are full for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Right now, there's very limited in Danville. So we need to be looking at potential sites for the future of our county here, and not just not for our citizens, but for the build out, because we've got the land. Everybody knows that. But we need to identify that land and start putting some, map pins in place and say, these are areas that we're looking at in order to make this happen. And the buy-in from the public is critical, because we're going to do that even with the comprehensive plan. There are public hearings for that. And so the citizens will need to be on board with that when we do the comprehensive plan and we do the strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to be aware of it. We need to make sure our announcements get out there
Right,
properly.
right.
Everybody is aware, and they can come in and talk to that. So those are the only points that I want to make. It's very good.
And to that point, that's exactly why we're willing to make the additional investment in community involvement, so that Greg Payne, Ted Abernathy go out into the community, and the conversations start now as the assets are being evaluated and prioritized. And then with the comprehensive plan, there'll be another set of conversations that occur. We think that's vital for the citizens of Pennsylvania County, not only to understand, but to participate in the creation of these living documents.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bourne.
Mr. Chairman.
Any further? Yes, sir. Mr. Height?
Dr. Fawcett, I'd like to thank you, the IDA board, for y'all's hard work. A lot of people don't realize, and I can speak because I've sat on both sides of this table. This board, we sit up here, we make decisions. That board does a lot of the legwork to bring industry here. We appreciate your work, Matt and his staff, their hard work.
They are.
This comprehensive plan is vital.
Yeah, it's no doubt.
If we do not have a plan, we will not succeed.
Yes.
And when Matt did his program, I agree with you 100%, Matt. We're at number 2. We need to be at number 3. As a board of supervisors, y'all are on board at number 3.
We're at number 3.
We need to be proactive. We need a plan. And once we get a plan, we need to follow the plan.
Yes.
Don't just get a piece of paper, a document, and put it on a shelf somewhere. And folks, citizens that are listening, that was a huge announcement last week the governor made.
Yes.
There's more announcements to come. There'll be more big announcements to come. We've got to be positive and think that way, but we've got to be proactive. Our community development team,
Yes.
6 months to get a permit.
Yeah.
Man,
It's hard.
if I was a developer,
Yeah.
I would be scratching my head, asking myself, do I want to get in an area? I got to wait 6 months before I can start moving dirt.
Yeah. I would say you and I would be pulling our hair, but that would
Yeah,
not
that ain't gonna happen.
That just wouldn't be
It's already
appropriate.
happened.
Yeah. Yes.
But I just want to thank y'all for your hard work.
Yeah.
I look forward to these board meetings together more often.
Thank you.
If you want to meet, Speak up.
We have, and thank
Well,
you
guess
again
what?
to Mr. Shorter for having listening ears, but more than that, for acting on our desire. I will put our board up against any IDA or EDA in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've got a stable full of thoroughbreds here. We're ready to run for a great quality of life in Pennsylvania County.
I will say this to a lot of these board members may not realize this. When I took over as chairman of the IDA, there was the Board of Supervisors on this side of the street. There was the IDA board on this side of the street.
Yeah.
And never the two should meet.
Yeah, we did.
And I went to Marshall Ecker and I said, Mr. Ecker, can we please get together? Roy Bird, God rest his soul, looked at me and said, Eddie, it'll never happen. How far have we come in 10 years?
The best is yet to come, Mr.
That's
Height.
exactly right. Folks, the best is yet to come.
Thank
That's
you
all
so
I
much for your support. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Height. Any further questions, comments for?
Thank you
Thank-
again for
thank
your
y'all,
attention. We
everyone.
haven't even had a potty break, and you guys have been very attentive and hanging in there
Yes,
with us.
sir.
So thank you so much for it.
Thank you.
We look forward to our next time with you.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all, everyone. All right, moving to item 7, any follow-up or staff follow-up items we need to talk about? If not hearing any, we're going to move